at one point I was just overwhelmed with that responsibility to raise the kids. And I went to the Lord and I said, what do I do? I mean, this is scary. This is hard. And he gave me a revelation. He said, if your children can read well, if they can write well, if they can do math well, and if they can hear my voice, they can go anywhere, do anything.
Hi, my name's Rick Michels, and you just heard from Kitty Spencer, who's just written a fantastic new book about her homeschooling experiences. Welcome to this episode of Meet the Body, where we will interview Kitty Spencer and hear about her book. And I think this will be a great inspiration to any parents out there who are frustrated by the current educational system and the COVID and the homeschooling and everything, would like to look at whether they can homeschool their own kids. I think this will be a great inspiration, and so I want you to sit back and enjoy it, and I'll give information on how you get a hold of Kitty if you want to know more about her experiences and get some advice. So thank you, and enjoy the broadcast. We're here today with Kitty Spencer. Kitty's a member of Sunrise Christian Center, and she's just published her first book, brand new, hot off the press, and what a timing for this book to come out. It's called Tender Hearts, Rock Solid Faith, and subtitle is How God Gave a Clueless Young Mother Wisdom to Raise Godly Children. So first off, Kitty, congratulations on this book.
Thank you.
And it must be really exciting to see your first book out in such fashion.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm impressed with is the timing of it, because I love the subtitle, Clueless Young Mother, How God Gave a Clueless Young Mother Wisdom to Raise Godly Children. And I think a lot of young moms today can probably feel what you were probably feeling, what you're feeling, because so many moms have and fathers have found themselves suddenly thrust into the job of teaching. And now they're looking at entering into the fall with their kids at home and continuing it. They may have thought, okay, well, this is going to be over by fall, but now they're finding out that maybe it isn't over by fall. I have a daughter-in-law who is so frustrated with the uncertainty that she is going to go ahead and homeschool her kids. And I've got other daughters and daughters-in-law who are just they feel clueless probably. So I'm going to give her a copy of this book, because what I like about it so much is it's just chock full of wisdom. It's amazing how much, Kitty, how much wisdom you packed into 100 and some pages, and it's so tightly well written. Talk a little bit about how you why you got the idea of writing the book, why you wrote it, and how you did it.
Yeah. Well, I know that when I was a young mom, and we were new believers, and we didn't have a clue of how to raise our kids to follow the Lord. I just figured if I had a book like that in my hands, and I would have had a chance to learn from other people's experiences and other people's stories, I would have really, really appreciated that. And I wanted to put that book in other people's hands so they wouldn't feel like they were all alone in this.
Very good. And I think so. I think this book would be a fantastic encouragement to mothers who are entering into homeschooling. It's not necessarily about homeschooling. I brought up the hook, but a lot of it talks about your homeschooling. But mostly you needed, and you felt a strong desire to raise your kids right, correct? And who doesn't? And every young parent goes into this job with trepidation. Am I going to do it right? And that kind of thing. And time again, you turn to God. You told me that you were you wrote the book. The desire you was there, and what you wanted to do was to offer this to moms. You spent the first half an hour or so speaking in tongues before you wrote the chapter, something like that. Is that right?
Well, I knew I needed to write a book, and I just didn't have time, so I thought I'll just write one paragraph. So I would sit down and pray in tongues for 15 minutes and write that paragraph and put it away. And then the next day I'd do a little editing and I'd pray for 15 minutes in tongues and I'd write another paragraph and put it away. And I just continued to do that till it was finished. And I really believe that this book was completely led by the Holy Spirit. And my prayer is that it just ministers to people and helps them to know that God is with them, and he promises if we spend time with him, he will guide us. We're not alone in raising our children.
Yeah, and I think that God did give you wisdom with that, and it's the study that you did, and the speaking in tongues is an edification of the spirit. It's very well written. It's tightly written. I don't think you waste a single word in it. It's just, and I was just very impressed, and so I want to give God the glory using you as a willing as a willing vessel of what he wants to tell people. So let's talk about the homeschooling aspect of it. Tell us how you got into homeschooling. You didn't start as a homeschooler from the start.
No, we started with our children in school, and then by fourth grade, my son was in fourth grade, we realized that he was really struggling with reading and math, and we decided to help him in the evenings at home, so we'd work with him on that. But by that time of day, we were all kind of tired. We thought, why not do this in the morning when we're all fresh? So we thought it was scary, and we prayed about it, and we just thought, this is the right thing to do. So we started working with him in the mornings and doing the math with him and doing the reading with him, and we really enjoyed it. And then but then the kind of the overwhelming feeling of the responsibility to teach these kids everything that they needed to know, it was a little bit scary, but God walked us through that.
So your son was second, third grade at the time?
Fourth grade, when he was really behind. He didn't know any of this math tables or multiplication tables. He read very poorly. And my daughter was, she was in second grade at the time, and almost every afternoon the nurse called and said she had stomach aches. And we could not find out what was wrong, what was going on with her. But after we brought them both home, the stomach aches went away and she was fine. So I think there was just a lot of stress for her being at school. And I don't know if I should even go into this, but we later, years later, I found out that what was happening at school, where the kids were teasing her and calling her big head and monster head. But at the time, she wasn't able to express that to me, and I didn't know that was going on. So we really, I think, saved her from some of the issues she might have had.
Wow, that's interesting. I know a lot of people, people who are detractors of homeschooling think the kids aren't being socialized. Well, there's a positive and there's a negative there. I know as myself, I've coached youth baseball for years raising my children, and I can tell you that homeschooled kids were very sociable. They were, I never had any problem. They were probably the most sociable, and not to mention often the most attentive and that kind of thing. So that's the socialization aspect. Maybe I have something to add to that, how you dealt with socializing with your kids.
They were around other children, they were around other adults, and they did taekwondo, they did my daughter did a music class and a drama class. They had their church friends, and so they were involved there. The Civil Air Patrol. So they got used to talking to children and adults. They could communicate very easily with any age people, and adults to babies. So we didn't see any problem with socialization.
Right.
We originally had decided to homeschool for the academics, so they could learn to read. And we concentrated on reading, English, math. Let me go back a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I was just overwhelmed with that responsibility to raise the kids. And I went to the Lord and I said, what do I do? I mean, this is scary. This is hard. And he gave me a revelation. He said, if your children can read well, if they can write well, if they can do math well, and if they can hear my voice, they can go anywhere or do anything. And so for our academics, we got a really good math program, and we did that every day. We got a really good language program, and we did that every day throughout their whole schooling. And then the rest of it, we had devotions every morning. And then the rest of the schooling, we had a little more flexibility, and we could do, I don't know how long I should go on this, but we got a scope and sequence for the entire 12 years from the Abeka curriculum to kind of get an idea of what we wanted to cover by the time they graduated. And so we were able to hit those areas at different times and different ways. Instead of, just an example, instead of reading about Gettysburg in a textbook, we were actually able to go there, and we were saw videos and listened to the people that had, taught on it there. And an old grandmother that had that war in her when she was a child, that she, what it was like for her. They'd asked her to leave her home until this battle was fought, and then she could come back. So they got a real firsthand account of so much of history. One more quick one. Like we watched the book Mrs. Miniver, or watched the movie Mrs. Miniver.
Mrs. Miniver, yes.
Yeah, and it's just a classic World War II Battle of Britain. And the kids were impressed when the boats went to rescue the people in Dunkirk. So we went to the library and we got things on Dunkirk and we read about that. And then we went down to the Science Museum, the Space Museum, Air and Space Museum.
Okay, the one at Boeing Field.
Boeing, yeah.
Yes.
And got to see the airplanes and got to learn about the radar. And from that, we read a book on making the stealth bomber, and how one day they would go in there and bats would be dead because because of the radar, the bats couldn't detect the stealth bomber, so they'd run right into it and fall on the floor. And I don't know, it just became one thing built on another, and it was fun. It was just fun.
Just fun, yeah. And it sounds like you learned as much as the kids did during these.
I learned more than I ever did as a kid.
Yeah.
Especially like the reading program, because it was actually a video program for reading and writing and grammar and composition. And I went through school all the way through with them, and I never learned those things when I went to school. Somehow I just over my head. But as an adult, I loved it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times as a kid, I think of the times I spent in school, and I spent hours just looking out the window daydreaming. So half an hour, 45 minutes of good solid instruction is with a one-on-one situation. Probably you get a lot more than oftentimes you got 20, 25 kids and teachers sharing it. I mean,
yeah,
you can daydream and they're not even noticing.
Yeah, my son just did not do well in a classroom situation, because he would be the one looking out the window and watching the little bug crawl across the room. Every report card we had gotten said, doesn't pay attention, he doesn't listen in class, he doesn't do his work. So for us, it was almost like a no-brainer. We had to do something different.
Yeah. So we talked about reading, and a chapter I really enjoyed was you talked about how you had the cable hooked up, and you found that you and the kids, the whole family, was kind of sucked into this vortex of television and the need to get out of that. You talked about the importance of reading to your kids. Maybe talk about that a little bit and the benefits of that, how important that is.
Later on, I became, I teach reading, or tutor reading, and I've taken classes on it. And I've learned that a good reader, when they read, they will visualize, just like watching a movie. what's going on in the story. And I was never able to do that. I had not been read to as a child. And while we were reading to our kids, we'd ask them, well, what did we just read? And both of them could just tell you detail after detail. And I asked them, I said, how do you know how to do that? And they said, well, we just see it like a movie. And so that came naturally to them because they'd been read to. And their vocabulary grew, their
attention span too, correct?
Attention
Attention span.
Yeah, we started very young reading stories every night, and they could listen for an hour, 2 hours, even in second grade, they could listen to it, because I think it takes training to focus. And there's so many things that are so fast on the TV screens, and this makes you slow down and really think and makes your brain work. And I think that's just an incredible gift for them to have.
I think that's so important. I know a lot of parents are concerned about the amount of time that their kids are spending looking at videos and TV and that kind of thing. And the attention span, the American attention span is shrinking. And this is an opportunity to take some time to teach that. And I think that's what really interested me, was the attention span that you saw was increasing with your own kids. And that kind of thing. Going back to math really quickly, I know that my daughters-in-law were just frustrated by the new math, the Common Core math, and how frustrating that was to try to teach a system that was foreign. And they showed it to me, and I couldn't figure out why on earth would anybody do it this way. So this is an opportunity to get back to basics, basically, not just reading, but math.
It works. The basics work. If they learn their facts young and they learn how to think, and it just, I mean, we put men on the moon that used that old system of learning math, where, you learn to add, subtract, multiply, divide, do fractions, do decimals. You learn how to do that in your head, and then that's the foundation to go on to higher math.
Right. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Without that foundation, I don't think you can do it very well.
You learn how to think, you learn how to compare things, and you learn how to compare things correctly. And yeah, so I think that's fantastic. You also talked about history, and you have the opportunity to teach kids a history that seems to be neglected nowadays in the public school. Maybe you'd like to talk about that as well.
We like to read American and world history, and we like to go to places. One example is we read about Fort McHenry and the Star Spangled Banner, how that was written that night. And then we went there and we got to hear the stories, see the movies. And at the very end, we were in a little theater. They opened up a big flag, a big curtain, and across the way was a flag that was right where the Star Spangled Banner was that night when the war was going and the bombs were hitting. And it just brought goosebumps. To this day, I can't see that song without crying.
Yeah. Wow.
So history became real.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were able to teach them not just the evil things that the founding fathers did, but the incredibly good things they did, and you were able to teach the purpose that they really saw the importance of religion and in the government system, and that this was something that they wanted to create a nation that adhered to biblical principles.
Absolutely, and if you read original sources on American history, it becomes very obvious that most of our founding fathers were Christian, and that they loved God, and that they built this nation on biblical principles. It's there. It's right in your face. You can't miss it.
Yeah, I think so. And I like, you have the sources in here. It's a short book, but time and time again, For example, you talked about finances. Let's talk about
Oh,
that,
yeah.
because a lot of times it's the lesson that not just the kids, you're teaching the kids, but you had to learn these things yourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something I wish I would have had that book in my hand when we started. We just did what everybody else did, and you bought everything on credit and got into debt and made a mess out of things. And so we tell in the book how we got out of that mess and how God led us out of that mess.
Yeah, just how to manage finances.
Mm-hmm.
And you also mentioned the financial freedom that came out of that, because we think that we think financial freedom is in borrowing and is having a credit card, but maybe you'd like to talk about the difference. In that regard.
I go into the different ways that my husband and I were growing up, and we had just different viewpoints on money. And one of the things for me was you just didn't spend money on things. And so when we went on a budget and I actually had an account for things, an allowance to buy things that I wanted just because I wanted, it was unbelievable. No guilt. I could buy something with no guilt. And and he liked to buy really good things, and often very expensive things, which was okay as long as we had it in the budget and saved for it and had it. So we both had freedom, and we didn't have that conflict as much anymore.
Very good, very good. And then they come to the point where, the little chapter you had on and teaching your kids the birds and the bees. And and one of the things I do enjoy is, one thing I think is good about this is that when you had sources that you went to, you list the sources in there so the reader can go and look for that book themselves. And there's some books and some things you did that. But I thought it was very good the way that you laid that out. I don't know if you'd like to talk about it a little bit about that. How did you approach it?
We let others who did well before us teach our kids through tapes and conferences, and it worked. Yeah.
There was I think that if I remember correctly, John, your husband, would go out with your son on a weekend, one place, and then you would take your daughter to another place. And
we listened to videos from James Dobson on growing up.
Right.
And it just gave them a good solid foundation and cleared up a lot of the questions for them that they had. This was right before they hit those teenage years.
Yeah.
And then a little later we reinforced it at a conference that did it again.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then there's a chapter near the end on the work ethic, and I thought that was really good. One thing that there's a chapter you say, you used the word turn and look.
Oh.
And I did that once. I thought that's interesting. My grandson got off the table and started walking away, leaving a mess. And I said, "Hey, turn and look." He turns and looks and says, "Oh, I get it." I didn't even have to explain it to him.
Really?
He took care of it. So, but the work ethic thing, I don't know if you'd like to talk a little bit about that, but I thought that was an excellent chapter as well.
I think that a work ethic is just really important. And I think one of the important things is that we work well, we do good, and we do our work unto the Lord.
Yes.
And but on the other hand, we don't want to become workaholics. And so in the book, I have things to do to have a good work ethic, and then things to do to keep from being a workaholic. So, because we need that balance in our life.
Right. Remember you talking about a young lady, a young girl with purple hair at the, she stood out even at a hardware store, and helping an elderly lady to get her stuff in the car, and you notice.
She just blessed my heart. She was helping that lady. Don't worry, I'll carry it for you, and I'll make sure you get everything you need. And she had such she had enthusiasm and a good attitude, and was helpful, and it just blessed my heart, and I like to see that.
Yeah, and you just noticed it, and I think a lot of people think, one thing I want to do for sure is I want my kids to grow up to be conscientious kind, and learning how to work as unto the Lord. Anyway, just again, another fantastic little chapter. The book is written from a firsthand experience, and you go through your life from the time that you became a Christian and came to know the Lord in a personal way, and walk through this whole situation of meeting your husband and getting married, and then having the children and going through situations. And I don't want to give it away too much, but I think it's just a wonderful little read. Besides, for someone to see that, yeah, these are situations, these are issues that I have. It's not just chapters. It's not a how-to book. It's how you did it book, and how God is a part of you every step of the way. And then at the end there's a little chapter on prayer, and maybe talk a little bit, because I think that it's important to know that your health background and how God has been important to that. So we won't give away the ending, but talk a little bit about your history, the health history that you have genetically, and what happened when it came home.
Well, my family deals with a genetic issue that is very, very serious. And a couple years ago, I had an issue that brought me to the hospital, and the doctor said, there's nothing we can do for you. And they sent me home on hospice. And here I am. And so in the book, it explains some more of that story.
Yeah. But you had, your family was, you lost your mother. Maybe you could talk about, you lost your mother at an early age. And
lost my mother, my sister, my brother, aunts, uncles, cousins.
And your mother just kind of, she just all one day she's doing well, and next day.
All of them.
Yeah, just out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not out of the woods quite yet, but it was coming for you too, right?
Yeah.
And it's a remarkable, I'm not going to give it away.
Actually, twice I should have died.
Wow. Yeah. And again, and that's in the chapter of prayer. And in this day and age, I mean, we have, especially these days, people are concerned about, about COVID, and there's a fear of that. But God has protected you, even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He was there.
He was faithful again, and I don't have fear. I mean, he could take me at any moment. He could take any of us at any moment, but he took away the fear, and that's a real miracle.
That's the most important thing. I think that the issues that people are facing today, fear seems to be the biggest problem that I see, is this fear. And when you focus on the problems, you're not focusing on the solutions, and the solutions often are so much more powerful than the problems, but it's where your focus is, I think. So anyway, so that's the book, Tender Heart, Rock Solid Faith, How God Gave a Clueless Young Mother Wisdom to Raise Godly Children. And again, this is a fantastic book. You can get it on Amazon, I believe, and Barnes & Noble, you said.
And where is it? Okay, www.advbookstore.com.
Yeah, of course, you've already bought the book by then, but we'll put that we'll put a list on below on where you can get the book, and on the description of this video. And hopefully we'll see it soon. If you're a member of Sunrise Christian Center, after church, between services, go to the bookstore and see if the book is there. And if it's not, say, you know what, I heard about this great book on Rick Michels' channel from Kitty Spencer. Can you get that book? This book in the library, in the bookstore. How's that sound? As a plug for you there.
Okay.
So, anyway, so thank you very much. Do you take questions? I imagine people reading this might want to send you an email. Do you have an email that they can get in hold of you, and have any specific questions, maybe on a curriculum that you like, or you would recommend?
Okay, yeah, it's Tender Hearts book at yahoo.com.
Okay, great. And that'll be down below too.
Okay.
So, Katie, it was great talking to you.
Well, thank you, Rick.
And congratulations. But hey, I noticed you put my name in here.
I did.
I got a chance to, you know, like I said, as you know, I've read the book. So, I
Yeah, I
got a
really
chance.
appreciated all your help with it.
Well, congratulations,
Thank
and
you.
what a blessing. If you're a mother, a young mom, you're looking at whether you should homeschool or whether you're forced to do it, this would be a great encouragement for you. And God bless you, and we'll see you at church.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
Bye
very
bye.
much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Hi, Rick Michels again. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like this, do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button down below. This would really help me out and allow me to bring more videos like this one to the channel. Thank you.